All right, welcome back to the Dr. Doug Show. Today we have another success story for you. And what I like about this success story is that it actually took a little bit longer. This is a patient who really struggled early on. I'll talk about why she had some challenges, but we just continued to kind of work the program, figure out where the weaknesses were in the approach, and you'll see by the end that we were able to find success. So I look forward to sharing this with you, and I want to define our structure as we go so that you can help to do this on your own. So what I'd like to do first is talk about how we approach creating a program for bone health. We use this thing called the 4R method, which is just something that we created to help us to provide a framework for our patients, but also our Osteo Collective members and anybody who's following us and helping us to kind of push this forward. We talk about this 4R method a lot. So let me just review it with you real quick. So number one, the first R is to recognize why you're losing bone. This is just root cause medicine at its best. Why are we losing bone? We don't need to accept that bone loss is a part of aging. We prove that in our practice. So why are you losing bone? Number one. Number two, the second R is then to reverse those causes of bone loss. Now, when I talk about reversing osteoporosis, this is actually what I'm talking about. Yes, it's great to see that T-score go above -2.5, but what I'm actually talking about is reversing those causes of bone loss, improving your bone metabolism, and then you see improvement in your T-scores down the line. So that's what I mean when I say reversing osteoporosis. The third R then is to retest and make sure that you're headed in the right direction. This is really, really important. And this is a good case example of that, where she had a great program, but it wasn't working initially because there were pieces that were still missing or weren't being done adequately. So while we had good initial labs, we thought we had the right approach, we ended up, retesting and seeing, oh, we're not headed in the right direction. And so retest, make sure you're heading in the right direction. Don't just stick your head in the sand and assume that what you're doing is working. And then the fourth R is my favorite one, and this is to revive your life and live without the fear of fracture. I'm gonna say it again. Revive your life and live without the fear of fracture. So that's the 4R method. Again, easy for anybody to use this to apply their own tools into a framework to help improve their bone metabolism. Okay, so let's get back onto this patient. So we're going to call her Ruth. So Ruth is a 55-year-old woman. She is 5'4" and 116 pounds. And this is pretty typical of our patient population. Generally tend to be small-framed, underweight, under-muscled, and that is a recipe for osteoporosis eventually for a lot of people. Now, what made her case interesting out of the gate is that she also had a very strong family history. So this is really important. If you have parents that had osteoporosis, if you had parents that had fractures, it's really important to understand that you are at increased risk. In fact, I recently interviewed Dr. Stuart Kim, who runs the company AxGen, and he has a program that's all about identifying genetics for osteoporosis. I think mostly applicable to younger individuals to see what their risk is, but this is another way to say it. Now, in his test, he shows, I think it was over 80% of the future of your bone quality and quantity is based off of your genetics. That's a big number. So if you have a strong family history, like this patient had both mother and father, something you really need to pay attention to. Now, before starting the program, she had started doing a walking routine. She was walking 3 to 4 times a week, but she had actually had a fracture right before this. So that really changed the way that she exercised. Before that fracture, though, she was actually much more aggressive with running. So she was actually a runner. She would run 4 to 5 miles, 5 days a week. That's a lot of running. And we know that running is associated with bone loss in a lot of people. So this may have been part of her cause, right? Now, she was also at that time lifting 3 days a week, and that's great. I don't have a lot of details of what that lifting included, so it's at least good that she was doing some resistance training at the same time. Now, she also followed a vegan diet for many years through her adult life, and she actually said it really well in her own paperwork. She said, "I tried to eat a whole foods, plant-exclusive diet. However, I oftentimes just ate more highly processed food and ate a, quote, glorified vegan diet." And that's what I see, unfortunately, a lot of people do because it's hard to eat a whole food, plant-exclusive diet. So she was eating quite a bit of processed food, and I think that was also probably playing a role in her bone health. Now, if we look at her DEXA scores, we actually have data going back 4 years. I don't have the official report going back, but if we go all the way back, if you look back in 2022, her spine started at a T-score of -3.5. 2023, it was negative 4.1. So this is where she actually started having fractures. She's had multiple fractures. So this is a really bad starting point, right? Now her hips were a little bit better, T-score of negative 2.6, and they stayed at negative 2.6 as she went from 2022 to 2023. So her spine was her biggest concern. So I have her entire list of supplements when she started the program with me, and I'm not going to list them out because it's a really, really long list. And what I want to point out here is that she was doing what she thought were all the right things. Now, she was doing weight-bearing exercise. She was walking 3 days a week. She wasn't doing any resistance training yet because she was recovering from a spine fracture. But this list of supplements is massive. So I'm just going to list off a couple of things. I'm not going to go through all of it here. But she was on D3K2. She was on an omega-3. She was on a mag glycinate. She was on methylated B12. She was on a probiotic. She was on a osteo combo product. She was on astragalus, ipraflavone. She was on a couple of kidney things. She was on a couple of metabolic things. She was using borage oil, some vitamin E, some other minerals. Just looking at this list, it's massive. Amazing grass green blend, melatonin, taurine, and on and on and on, collagen. So she had this really massive supplement list. And we see this pretty frequently. She was doing weight-bearing exercise, but she was still losing bone. Now, she was also in a bad starting point because she has now had multiple fractures. She's had multiple rib fractures, which are not technically fragility fractures, but one was from her husband hugging her. That's a low mechanism force right there. The other one was from a dance partner picking her up on her ribs, right, and caused a rib fracture. Now, she had some spine fractures from falling down the stairs. That's potentially real trauma, but actually a fragility fracture depending on the mechanism. And then she also had the most recent fracture in 2022 from riding a horse. So she's had multiple fractures. She has low bone density. This is a bad starting point. Now, when we first met and we talked about all of the different approaches, for us, always hormone optimization comes up. Now, she has an interesting family history that I want to talk about because for her, this was really the biggest driver of her not using hormones. So her mother died at the age of 70 of a recurrent metastatic breast cancer that was initially diagnosed at the age of 47. Now, you can imagine this impacted her significantly as she went through menopause and had a conversation around hormones. Her doctors, as she told me, told her that she had a strong family history and that it was too dangerous to use HRT. Now, here's what's frustrating about that. So number one, they didn't take into account that she already had low bone density and osteoporosis. So she literally was in a position of increased risk of another disease that was going to get worse with estrogen deficiency. Secondly, the risk of cancer, specifically breast cancer, that comes from having a family member with an increased risk or with a history of breast cancer is already present. So that risk doesn't change whether or not she uses HRT or not. And this is misunderstood. So I'm going to say that another way. If you had a family member, immediate family member, sister or mother, that had an early cancer, it puts you at increased risk of developing cancer. That's true. That's the genetic side of it, even if there were lifestyle factors involved. But that risk already exists prior to the decision to start HRT, and the risk doesn't change when you start HRT. This is what's misunderstood about family history. Now, that does mean that we do need to be more cognizant of screening. We need to be more aware that you are at higher risk, and HRT potentially, especially if not done right, could make cancer grow faster. So I'm not saying it's not relevant, but it's not a reason, in my opinion, not to start, especially like in this case where some of the more common cancer genes had actually already been ruled out. Sorry to pause this success story, but if you are struggling to find your own success story, you're looking for more information, please consider coming to our free masterclass. The masterclass we do about every other week. I run it myself, and we talk about the top, I think it's 3 or maybe 5 at this point, mistakes that we see people making as they're creating their bone health journey. It's very, very consistent. We see people make these same mistakes all the time, and I don't want you to do that. So come join us. We'll talk about the things that we've seen, and then we also leave about 20 minutes for Q&A. We talk about some resources on where to potentially go from there. It's totally free. Look for the link in the description on YouTube, or you can head to our website, optimalhumanhealth.com, and you can find it there as well. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, we want to start with the 4 R's, right? So what is the reason why she's losing bone? Let's recognize why she's losing bone. Well, we already said some of it. She had a sedentary lifestyle because of a fracture. She was eating a vegan diet. When we started tracking her protein, she was getting nowhere near ideal protein. We're talking 30 to 40 grams a day. So that's a clear reason. She also had some gut dysfunction, which I haven't talked about yet. She wasn't on hormones and she was early in menopause, right? So she's 55 years old. I think she went through menopause in her early 50s. So we're talking like within the first 2 to 3 years, and we know that you're going to rapidly lose bone during that time frame. Okay, so then what do we do with the second R? How do we reverse then those causes of bone loss? Well, we had a conversation around HRT, right? So this is one of the biggest tools you can use. So we started her on HRT, we educated her on the risk, and we educated her on the best ways to do screening. And she was very comfortable with that, and she feels great on HRT. Now, the other big player for her is going to be diet. So we dug into the reasons. Why are you eating a plant-exclusive diet? Why are you avoiding animal products? And it turned out there were some animal products that she was actually willing to consume, and there were some animal products that she wanted to avoid. So we found a way to get more protein for her in a way that she was comfortable with, it aligned with her morals, her values, and her views on animal husbandry. So we were able to start getting her more protein. She's tracking, she's getting over 100 grams of protein a day. That was a massive change for her diet. The exercise part is an area where we really struggled because she was recovering from this vertebral fracture. She was walking. She wasn't doing any resistance training. She had a history of it, but was afraid of it, and rightfully so. So we started her with some light resistance training. We have a 4-phase program. She was in phase 1. It's a lot of body weight, movement, getting used to technique again. She did some of this with a weighted vest. She was able to wear that with her spine once it was healed. And then she also did osteogenic loading through a biodensity power plate-like device. We went through a gut health program with her as well, but those were probably the biggest factors that we put into play. I wanted to mention a little bit too about our HRT, because I know there's lots of questions around how do we do it? What's the best way to do it? And I can tell you that the best way is going to be individualized. This particular patient, by the time she was done with us, she was on a 4 milligram per ml estradiol cream twice a day. She was using DHEA as well as some testosterone. And of course, testosterone is off-label for any woman. And then she was on progesterone, and we were able to titrate her up to 300 milligrams at night. So this helped her with her sleep. She felt great. She had better energy. I mean, she was just raving about how she felt on her hormones. Now, what's interesting, we'll talk about at the end, is that we are still not actually to goal if you look at her serum levels, but that's okay because I'll show you all the other things, and everything's definitely headed in the right direction. So we changed up her supplement stack. And in fact, for her, and this is actually not that uncommon, for her, we actually reduced the number of supplements that she was on. So we put her on a couple of things for detox. She's on a specific K2. She's on something for estrogen metabolism. We did some urometabolite testing on her. She's on Tongkat Ali to help with conversion of the testosterone that she's getting into free testosterone. That was an upgrade we have to make over time. She's on additional magnesium. She's using a product for thyroid support. She's using a product for cortisol support. She's on lactoferrin, Lipitrol Ox, which is a great product that helps with both oxidized LDL as well as bone health. She's on a B complex, continued on a fish oil, and then Algacal Plus and this product Cardio NAD. She has a lot of concern around cardiovascular risk. So still a substantial list, right? But we're hitting a lot of things. There's a lot of cardiovascular, there's a lot of detox. There's actually not that many things in there that are specific for her bone health. Okay, so how do we do? Let's fast forward 2 years. Now, I said early on we had struggles, and we did, because it was a struggle to get the right food. We had to do some gut work to be able to get all that protein in because her gut just wasn't used to it. It wasn't used to eating animal products at all, right? So we had to do some gut work. She worked with our dietitians. So that took some time. Exercise was really slow to get going because she had that fracture and she had a lot of fear around lifting. So we started at a pretty low level and we progressively overloaded, and that takes time if you have a very low starting point. So we have now DEXA, so actually 2 years later. So we started her DEXA journey in 2022, and now we have data for the subsequent 4 years. I told you her spine went from 3.5 to 4.1 before she started working with us. Within her first year, she went from 4.1 to 3.7, negative 3.7 as a T-score, which is a good improvement. But the next year, she went from negative 3.7 to negative 3.1. And so now she went from negative 4.1 to negative 3.1. I only have the bone mineral density numbers for that jump from 3.7 to 3.1. And that's a 9.8% improvement in 1 year. Now, obviously it's bigger if you go from 4.1 to 3.1. But when you're doing percentage change, this is really important. When you're doing percentage change, you have to use the bone mineral density, grams per centimeter squared, versus the T-score. So if you do the math on the T-score, you'll get these kind of big wonky numbers. And remember that T-scores change even if your bone mineral density stays the same, which is a confusing topic. So anyway, over that last year, around 10%. Now her hips just a little bit slower. Again, I only have the last year, and that was a 7.4% improvement. She went from 2.6 to 2.5, and then negative 2.5 to negative 2.2. So she's actually out of the osteoporosis range for her hips, and I think she will be with her spine probably over the course of the next year. All right, so then how did we do that? Well, let's think about it again. So we used the 4R method. We identified that she had genetics working against her. She had her diet working against her. She had her exercise working against her hormones working against her gut, and her stress, which I didn't talk that much about. So if we're talking about the first R, recognize why you're losing bone, that's the low-hanging fruit. That's what we aimed for. And then we created a program to address as many of those as we can. But here's what I want to point out about this case. If we look at what we did with her, I don't want to say we struggled, but it took us a lot of time to get things moving in the right direction. That's why she was with us for 2 years. But even if I look at where she is at the end of 2 years, it's still not perfect by any means, right? There's still room for improvement. Her hormone levels aren't that high. Her FSH is still 70. It was 100, so it's better. But her hormone levels still aren't ideal when it comes to her labs. Now, she feels great, but we know that we need to look at other things too. Her bone turnover markers did continue to improve. They kind of went up and down throughout the program. And at the end, they were still over 150. Clearly, she's building bone. I'm happy with that. We wouldn't necessarily have to change anything, but I still think she could be more optimized. I think she could be doing more with her exercise too. So there's still room for improvement. And the reason why I bring this up is because it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to find the low-hanging fruit, the things that are going to give you the biggest impact, address those things as well as you can, and then retest and see if it's enough. And if it's not, then you need to recalibrate. And if it is, keep going and then keep retesting and make sure that it's still working. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that's the takeaway from today. So that's it. Remember that a diagnosis of osteoporosis isn't the end, but deciding to reverse it is the beginning. I'll see you in the next video.